Hey everyone, I'm Austin Reville, and welcome back to our From the Vault series, brought to you by 2FBC Tactical Indoor Range and Store. We're here in our podcast room, getting the opportunity to take you through some of the most iconic and unique firearms in history. Some of these are straight from our personal collection, some of them are stuff that just kind of walk through the door here, and some of it is from our customers, and a huge shout out to our customers. We have the Second Amendment Museum wall that is sponsored by Veteran Shredding right here in Minnesota. We're very excited that they wanted to bring that offering to you guys. So when you come into our shop, please stop by the Second Amendment Museum wall, brought to you by Veteran Shredding. With that, I also want to give a shout out to our customers, because while yes, we do bring stuff that are from our personal collection and in the store, there are stuff like the Springfield 1863 musket that we just did a video on. We would not get the opportunity to share with you guys otherwise if it wasn't for our customers allowing that. So thank you. And today we are very excited to dive into this guy right here. But if you'll give us just a brief moment to thank the USCCA. Shortly, I just want to take a quick moment and thank our partners over at the United States Concealed Carry Association. The USCCA has been a partner here at 2FBC Tactical for a little over 5 years now. I personally trusted them with my concealed carry insurance for almost a decade now, me and my wife. So I really do believe in what they do and what they have to offer. And we want to thank them for supporting this channel to grow. The memberships with the USCCA gives you access to certified training, concealed carry resources, and the self-defense liability coverage. So you are not alone if the unthinkable ever happens. That will be in the link right down below. Just check it out. The one thing I will say that you can do that's completely free of charge, go and get their concealed carry reciprocity map, upload the permits that you have to carry, and it will show you where that is valid in throughout the United States, as well as the local laws as you travel. Don't get jammed up on the road, guys. Just take that moment and at least get that. It's free. And the levels of membership that they offer, there's something there for everybody. It's not super expensive. You get the same liability coverage, self-defense liability coverage, regardless what level you choose. Again, really got to thank them for what they do. Now back to the video. So we get to take a dive into the H&K UMP40 today, and I'm kind of excited about it. Now this gun doesn't really need a ton of introduction. It's something that most of you have probably seen and been familiar with, whether it be from pop culture like movies and TV shows, and the rise of video games such as Call of Duty and Battlefield. These are popular choices among gamers to use in their games. Counter-Strike too, if you're an old school guy like me, if you remember the Counter-Strike games, you could use guns like this. And in terms of like why this has become popular is somewhat of the look and design, and also its status as an improvement over the MP5, which it really is. So if we just kind of back up a little bit, going into the MP5, which we certainly will do a video on that at some point here. The MP5, developed in the late 70s, early 80s, comes around to modernize the submachine gun era, which it does, and it does extremely successfully, because it is still a popular subgun to this day, used all over the world by militaries and law enforcement. And then here in the United States, there is, half a dozen different manufacturers, whether they be Turkish or American or even H&K itself, that sell the semi-auto versions of the MP5 on the market. But by the 90s, there are some limitations to the MP5 that H&K realized, and they wanted to update and modernize that design. Also, here in the United States, we tend to be a bit stubborn. We are obsessed with the 45 ACP cartridge, going all the way back to Colt 1911, right? This is something that John Moses Browning invented and brought into full force, and it was ultimately used in the submachine guns of World War II, whether it be the Thompson or the grease gun, the M3 grease gun, right? Been obsessed with 45 ever since then. And the MP5 does not come in the 45 ACP variant. They never made one. So one of the things that they thought they could do with a new platform was introduce that cartridge, and it would help boost sales in the United States, which didn't really play out, and we'll get into that here in a minute. But they took the MP5 idea and said, what if we put all polymers into this? So this is the 90s. We realized we could do a lot more with polymer than we thought we could. So everything about this gun is polymer. This includes the fire control unit. The hammer itself is polymer with a thin metal plate on the inside. If you want to see something like this broken down, Forgotten Weapons has an excellent video with Ian taking apart the UMP and kind of showing you the internal pieces. And they made the receiver, like I said, the fire control unit, the lower, the stock, everything's polymer. The only things that are metal is that metal plate in the hammer itself, the barrel, the bolt, and the springs that make it operate. This makes this an extremely light gun. It's super light. And they did chamber it in the 40 Smith & Wesson's cartridge that was, becoming really popular in the late 80s and 90s, but would fall out of favor by the early 2000s, mid-2000s, which is why that variant is no longer in production. The 9mm and 45 ACP variants are in production still. This is a 40 Smith & Wesson version. This is an assault weapons era gun. The reason why I know that is when we got the parts kit right here on the magazine was, and you'll see in this close-up, is a stamping that says for military law enforcement only. And that has to do with the magazine capacity size being over 10 rounds during the assault weapons ban of 94 through 2004. And if you like a video on that, we did do a video on the assault weapons ban era. That was one of my earliest videos. Probably not one of my best, but we did break down what that law did and what it was attempting to accomplish and whether it was successful in doing so or not. Now, this particular platform ended up being marketed to law enforcement and militaries predominantly. There is a neutered variant for the civilian market, not the USC. It's not really a big seller or very popular. You don't see a lot of people with them, but there is that neutered version out there for the civilian market. And like I said, with the rechambering, their idea was they would replace the MP5, but that didn't happen. MP5 sales actually still outsold this gun. A couple of reasons why. MP5 is super reliable. There's a lot of them out there. And the 9mm cartridge is more than enough for the submachine gun. But there really is kind of a second piece to that, why the MP5 continues to outsell it, is because the era of the submachine gun was over, basically, by the time this came into existence. So take, for instance, Operation Iraqi Freedom, right? The 2003 invasion of Iraq. We did use some of these for some of the close quarter stuff. By then, we're starting to see like the smaller versions of the AR, whether it ultimately becomes the Honey Badger or other things, kind of take that role of the subgun. Something that the Russians had actually done with the AK-74U already, all the way back in 1974, which is realized that submachine gun pistol cartridge gun wasn't something that moving forward that they wanted to pursue, and that is because of the limitations of the rounds itself. You can only get so much distance, so much penetration, so on and so forth with pistol caliber cartridges, and we kind of caught up to that in the 2000s. So when this came out, it was kind of the end of the submachine gun era. And there's another piece to that too, because that was specifically in the military. When it comes to law enforcement, the era of law enforcement using full auto guns is ending at this point too, and is basically over. There are some rare exceptions where they still will use them, but when you think about the current laws and the current liability structure to law enforcement agencies in the United States, the spraying and praying approach to situations is not the way they pursue whatever that crisis is that they're responding to, whether it be a hostage situation, whether it be a barricaded individual or whatever. It's about precision. It's not about going in there and pumping lead into a room, typically speaking, which is really what submachine guns are designed to do. If you go back to, say, the Thompson in the 1920s when it was developed with World War I in mind, trench sweeping. You could go and empty a magazine very quickly into a trench at close quarters with a bunch of people huddled up there. That was the idea with it. And in World War II, we used them with bunkers in mind and clearing rooms for sure, but still the M1 Garand and the M1 carbine ended up being more heavily used. because of distant shots. And of course, this varied depending on what theater you were in, whether you were in the Pacific or the European theaters. Fast forward to Vietnam, we are still using Thompsons, then we would upgrade to the Madsen M50s, but submachine guns wasn't something we were heavily pursuing. We did have the Mac 11 and Mac 10, yes, but we were using the M16 A1s predominantly for doing almost all the heavy lifting. And this would continue on through the 80s, the 90s, of course, Iraq, and then we would get into the War on Terror, and then Operation Iraqi Freedom or Enduring Freedom or whatever that ended up being in 2003, so on and so forth. So submachine guns just didn't really have a place in the U.S. military, and that was starting to be true around the world. And it didn't really have a place in law enforcement in the United States by the 90s, 2000s, when, again, court rulings and liabilities to police officers started to really increase. The need for more precision increased. So that's why the UMP40 really didn't see the sales in a lot of ways that I think H&K thought they would. Everyone already had MP5s, and there was already, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of them in production or out in the world. So they just kept the ones they had because they weren't really using any new ones, because they weren't buying new ones because they were phasing them out. Now, when it comes to law enforcement around the world, you do see these at, say, airport security in Europe or in South America. You will see them in these kind of second or third world countries too. In Africa, you'll see H&K UMP40s. A lot of them are older cast-offs from various militaries or law enforcement that just got rid of them. They will use them. And I will say, just from this gun, having used it here in our range, it's super controllable. I love it. It's super, super light. I mean, it's about half the weight of the MP5. And I was wondering, with it being half the weight and also 40 Smith & Wesson versus 9mm, would that make it harder to handle? The answer is no. It actually is a very smooth gun. So props to H&K as always. I do think they're one of the best, if not the best, firearm makers in the world. Their inventions have been out of this world. I cannot wait to get my hands on the G36. I very much hope that happens one day. H&K, if you're hearing me, anytime you want to send me a G36, I'm in. But yes, we are very fortunate to have this in our shop. If it's something you'd like to use, you could come in, and we certainly can help with that. But it was exciting to bring this to you guys. When it comes to what the future for this gun is, again, it's kind of a gun without a home at this point. Unfortunately, you'll see it in ranges, of course, like ourselves for our customers to use. There are some, obviously, law enforcement agencies that use this. There are still some in military service around the world, just not in the numbers I think H&K ever envisioned. They killed the 40 Smith & Wesson line. The only thing, though, that you have to change from this gun to make it 45 ACP or 9mm is the bolt, the barrel, and the magazine. Everything else stays the same. So it does have parts that are interchangeable. So this one gun could be 3 calibers, keeping it in that modular field. And the other thing that they did do is make it so you could put pick rails on it, which is something the MP5 didn't really allow for, a bunch of attachments. So it does bring it into that modern era of allowing attachments, while also keeping the cool HK slickness. But I do appreciate you guys tuning into this video. Can't wait to bring you the next one. I look forward to discussing a very fun Civil War firearm with you next. But please like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time.